Keep up to date with all things Reading FC. Follow the Tilehurst End on Facebook and Twitter.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by ZCZ Films. Remember, if you want to get involved in sponsoring the show, drop us an email to thetilehurstend@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Tilehurst End podcast. Obviously, no main shows from us at the moment because of the World Cup break, but we thought we'd bring you something slightly different during the interlude. We are, of course, currently in the month of November, and that means we are also midway through Movember as well, which sort of seeks to raise awareness around a range of issues of sort of men's health, such as prostate cancer, testicular cancer, and also men's suicide as well. And that's the thing we're going to be focusing on today and discussing all things mental health in football. I am your host, Olly Allen, and I have two great guests alongside me. Firstly, the Tilehurst End writer, Ben Thomas. Ben, how are you?
I love the fact you introduced me before Tom. I think that's hilarious. So, yeah, thanks for that. I'm very well, thank you, Ollie. Very well.
No, but yeah, I was building Tom up. I was going to do the big reveal. But yeah, as Ben said, we've also delighted to be joined by Reading centre-back and boyhood fan Tom McIntyre. Tom, thanks for coming on. Obviously, as I say, we're in the middle of this sort of slightly unusual mid-season break at the moment, but how have you been finding it so far?
Yeah, it probably came at a good time for us, I think. Get a few injuries back and sort of rest up and have a good break. And I think, yeah, in years gone by, we've never had this. So it's been quite a nice change, I think.
Yeah, of course. I think it's sort of this feeling of sort of not having any Reading matches on. That's where I sort of wanted to start with this, really, because I think certainly, Ben, from a supporter's perspective, obviously there are World Cup games going on. We were talking about it off air a minute ago, but sort of, 4 games are there at the moment. But, definitely I think for some people sort of, nothing is quite the same as, going to the Madstad, going to games with family, groups of friends, and sort of, I think it was obviously quite a big issue during, the COVID lockdowns, and even when football returned, even, without fans, that sort of people missed that, social interaction, and sort of, just that escape of sort of going to the football. Sort of how important sort of for your mental health, Ben, is sort of, going to football and going to Reading matches?
Depends how well they play, mate, to be honest. Depends how well some of the team play. I mean, neither put you on up or on a down, really. No, I think historically for me, like it's, I've been watching Reading for a long time, and as I've got older, it's kind of, it's not being a release because that makes it sound like my life's terrible. It's really not, but going to the football is part of routine and kind of something that you can just kind of switch off to, really, and enjoy. And I think from my own personal point of view, kind of going back sort of 6 years ago, I had like a breakdown, full-on breakdown, and that was kind of during the kind of the Yap Stam team, and that obviously that wasn't a contributing factor to how I was feeling before anyone says that was the case. But at that point, Reading was a massive part of my life, and still is, and it helped me to get over certain things I was facing in life, really, and it's been a constant. And I think there's a lot of fans out there that view Reading Football Club as a constant and a kind of something that's always going to be there where maybe other things aren't in their life. So, yeah, I mean, it's huge. And, the social element of it, I've started taking my son now. My daughter comes very begrudgingly occasionally, and they love it too. So it's something for me that's a big part of my life, and obviously a big part of other people's lives as well. And football has that ability to kind of to transport you out of where you are, and you can switch off and enjoy what's going on, or hopefully enjoy what's going on the pitch anyway. But it's a huge part for a lot of people, and certainly historically it's been huge for me to be able to switch off to certain things and just concentrate on Reading Football Club.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing, isn't it, really, that that no matter what's happened sort of during the working week, no matter sort of what struggles or anything you've had during that week, come Saturday, you've got a Reading game to look forward to, whether that's actually being at the ground, being at the Madstad, or doing an away game, or listening on the radio, or whether it's on TV or whatever. You've got that sort of switch off just for 90 minutes, really, I think that's massive for me. I think, no matter what's happened sort of during the week, you can forget about things, even if it is just for those 90 minutes. And yeah, I suppose the result, sometimes makes a difference, but sometimes it doesn't really matter what the result is. It's just the fact you're watching your favourite players week in, week out. And, Tom, sort of looking at, football sort of internally, I suppose, sort of how much is mental health sort of talked about, whether that's sort of in the dressing room or sort of externally?
I'd probably say that it's not spoken about enough in the football environment. I think it's obviously very big in the media at the minute, so I think there's a lot more being spoke about in the media rather than actually internally. And I think that's just part and parcel of the environment that we're in, that it's such a high pressure environment where everyone's got their own worries and everyone's worrying about not only the team's performances but their own performances. And I think it sometimes gets a little bit forgotten about, which I think that's incorrect. I think it should be spoken about a lot more, but I think that the environment we're in, it's a very sort of, I'll say, macho environment. And probably, I don't know about other clubs, but it's probably partly to do with you don't want to show weakness, I think, as a player in the team. And I think it's wrong, basically, because if one of my teammates came to me and said they're struggling with something, it would mean a lot to me that they've come to me and opened up, and I'd sort of have a lot of respect for them for that. Because I think in life that if you've got a problem, you've got to sort of speak to someone, and a problem shared is a problem halved, isn't it? And of course, everyone's coping mechanisms are different, but I don't know, there might be some people at football that don't have many close family around them, and maybe their teammates are the closest people they have. So yeah, I think it is one of them things that I know everyone's individual, but it probably should be spoken about more in football. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you touched upon there, kind of, it is kind of spoken about widely in the football community, and kind of generically discussed in terms of, we have this month where we focus on men's mental health, and slightly linked, but you get the prostate cancer badges and things like that, which links into kind of mental health, really. I mean, not just as men but as football players, what do you think the barriers are to males talking about how they feel from a mental perspective, maybe an emotional perspective? What do you think kind of stops people from coming to you or coming to people at the club, or just talking generally in a wider space about how they feel, really?
It probably is just the fact that people don't want to show weakness. I think as males, I don't know, through life you're taught to, well, maybe quite a few years ago you were taught to sort of just get on with it and sort of man up. People would used to say that, but you're not allowed to say that now, and that's right, because yeah, we're all humans at the end of the day, and stuff's going to affect us. And I think it's important that you get it out before it gets too much for you. But I think, yeah, as men, I think in general we don't want to show that bit of weakness, because people might think differently of us. When really, I think it shows quite a lot of courage, and sort of you should be proud that you're able to talk about that, because it is a hard conversation to have. I get that, but yeah, if you need help, you've got to be honest, and yeah, make sure you talk.
Do you sort of think those attitudes in football are changing slowly? I mean, we're starting to see, sort of high profile players, sort of come out in the media and sort of share their stories of mental health and stuff like that. Obviously, you're still, pretty early on in your career, but you've sort of been in and around that first team environment for sort of 4 or 5 years now. Have you sort of noticed that sort of any shift in the attitudes, towards mental health?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And although I say it's not spoken about enough. That's just not to say it's not spoken about. It's spoken about a lot more now than it was when I first was in and around the first team, I think, and I think that's a positive sign, that these media campaigns and how life is at the minute. I think people are a lot more aware of the fact that of the fact that there is mental health about, and it is so common in everyone, and it doesn't matter which walk of life you're in. There's always going to be stuff that's going to put pressure on you or get you down, and I think maybe lockdown as well, like you mentioned, I think that was massive in getting people to be more aware of mental health. So yeah, of course in the last few years that I have been in the first team, I have seen a shift in the amount people talk about it. Yeah.
And obviously something else that's sort of grown in prominence, I suppose, in the last few years is, sort of social media. Obviously, it was big when you broke into the first team, but it's sort of grown in. Well, I mean, I suppose if Twitter stays alive, then it'll keep going. But obviously, how much of an impact sort of does that have on sort of players' well-being? So I think personally, from my point of view, I think some people, fans supposedly on Twitter can sort of write anything on social media and sort of believe that it doesn't really have an impact on players if players see it, and because players earn X amount of money, they drive a nice car and they live in a nice house, it's not going to affect them. But I think you see players recent years are coming off social media just because at times it can be such a toxic environment.
Definitely, yeah. And I think as a youngster growing up through the academy or through the age groups, you're never taught how to deal with that, which I think is important, because until you get to a first team, you never have anyone saying anything negative about you, really, apart from coaches or maybe your mum and dad, maybe a bit of constructive criticism. But yeah, to see something, I remember when I was first in the first team, and I might have had a few bad games at the time, and you see stuff on social media, and it would I'll be honest, it knocked my confidence at the time. And I'm being quite open about that, because I think a lot of people, like you said, see footballers that they're these people who nothing affects them, and it's just like water off a duck's back. But yeah, when you're younger and you've not experienced that before, it is hard to deal with. And yeah, I think there is a lot more players nowadays that stay off social media, and people deal with their social medias. Me personally, obviously I'm a Reading fan myself, so when I first got in the first team, I followed a lot of different fan pages, and I saw everything that was tweeted about everyone. But sort of over the years, I've learned that it's best not to even see it. So a lot of accounts are muted for me, because yeah, it's great seeing good stuff, but that's not going to affect you. And then it's not so good seeing bad stuff, but again, that's not going to affect you. What matters really for players is how the people around you feel, and what the manager thinks, really. And you've got to remember that. But at the end of the day, I understand fans, like you said, for fans, football's their life for some of them. So of course, when you come and watch a game and we don't play well as a team, or I make a mistake, people are going to say stuff, which I fully understand. But yeah, it's never easy to see stuff about you, and you could see 10 good tweets, but all it takes is one bad one, and yeah, you do think, has he got a point? But yeah, it's sort of your negatives, the negative side of your brain's sort of a lot more prominent than the positive one. But yeah, all that matters really is about your family's opinions and your teammates and staff, really.
Yeah, I think that's the same for everyone, really. Everyone sort of seeks that sort of, they want that validation, from people. And I suppose, I think it's good advice for most players, really, to value those sort of the opinions of those around you, rather than those on social media who you've never met or you never know, really, I suppose.
Of course, I'll have the odd flick through your ratings, though, so I do have a look at them from time to time.
I think it's an interesting point you made, though, about kind of working on things that you can control and listen to the people closest to you, because particularly last season, we all shared from the Tilehurst, and we all shared opinions, and particularly from some of the things I said about the club, not about the players, but all got absolutely slated. And you're right, and actually, it does take that one comment or that one that just goes completely over the top. You think, actually, do you know what? Have they got a point? Probably from what people are saying about me, they're probably right, actually, to be fair. But you learn over time that actually, what people are saying behind a phone or a keyboard or whatever isn't really the be all and end all. It's what people around you are saying, and how you're how you're thinking and how you're behaving, really. I mean, talking about those things that you can control, you've had fairly unlucky period of quite serious injuries. How did you, during the time that you were out of the team and you were watching, your mates and the other players play, for example, how did you manage your own mental health? How did you control how you were feeling on certain days when maybe rehab wasn't working, or you were having a few setbacks, or what stuff did you do to kind of get you out of those slumps?
Yeah, I really struggled. At one point, it was when I fractured my back. I couldn't do any exercise at all at the time, because your back obviously controls the whole of your body, obviously. And I couldn't do sort of fitness stuff in the gym, couldn't do leg stuff in the gym, couldn't do strength stuff. So I wasn't able to do any exercise, and I felt like any other injury I've had, where say be it my ankle or my knee, you can do that bit of exercise, which I think was massive for me. Because when I don't do exercise in the day, I sort of, I don't know, get a bit down and feel a bit lethargic, and I think that in itself brings you down. So yeah, when I fractured my back and I couldn't do any of that, I really did struggle. But I'd say for me, the biggest thing for me is talking to my family. I have a really good. I have really good support from my family and my friends, which was important. But the biggest thing I think was exercise, really, because yeah, it releases endorphins in your body and makes you feel good. And I do really notice a change if I have a day lazing on the sofa or have the curtain shut in my room. It really does make me sort of not feel great about myself, really. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the same for well, I think certainly for me, I think definitely for most people, just even if it's just getting out for a run for 15, 20 minutes, it's just getting off the sofa and you're not sitting around, all day. I mean, I suppose that's where I wanted to take it next, really, to both of you, really. I mean, Ben, I'll come to you first in terms of managing your mental health and sort of what are your, sort of, I say sort of coping mechanisms and sort of the people you would sort of go and talk to if you did have problems or concerns.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my point of view, when I felt really awful. As I said, those kind of years ago, I was quite lucky because I recognised I had a problem pretty quick, and I think always the most difficult thing is people recognising they've got a problem, and once you know you've got a problem, whatever that is in life, whether that's to do with work, whether that's to do with financials, whether it's to do with family, whatever it is. Once you've admitted there's a problem, you can deal with it and you can move on. You can go, right, these are plans and this is the steps I'm going to take to make myself feel better. And for me, it's probably about 3 months before I started to feel like I kind of wanted to feel, really. And since then, I felt great. I've probably felt the best I've ever felt, really. And you look at setbacks that happen and you kind of juggle those for what they are and not kind of make them turn into the biggest thing in the world, and that becomes kind of how you're feeling, really. I think exercise is a big one. I think obviously this won't apply to Tom because he's a clean athlete, but I was never a big drinker anyway. But kind of laying off that, I think is probably quite a good thing to do, or was for me anyway. And just doing things that I enjoy doing and not feeling like I have to live up to a certain agenda or whatever. Obviously there's certain things that you're going to do sometimes, but I'm lucky. I enjoy my job. I love what I do. Like Tom said, I have a good family around me. I've got some really close friends that I can talk to. But ultimately, I know if I'm getting to a certain point or I feel like I'm kind of slipping a little bit, I know exactly what to do and kind of take those steps. Whereas I think before I was probably reaching burnout and just going through the burnout rather than just stopping and saying, look, I need to take a break and, go for a run or watch a film or, go watch Red and Play or whatever. So it's really important that if people feel that way, it's kind of working out on those dark days and those bad days when they're not feeling great, what things do they enjoy doing and focus on those. And it doesn't have to be, major things. It doesn't have to be going out and buying loads of stuff. It's just those small things that are gonna make you feel a lot more positive about stuff, really.
Yeah, I think that's the important thing to say, really, is that it's not going to be the same things for everybody, really. And everybody has their own ways of doing things. Like, if I'm feeling a bit down, I'll literally chuck on a TV episode that I've seen a million times before. But it's that sort of that comfort episode that you can just sit down and sort of watch for 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever. And I think that's important that everybody has their own sort of relationship with mental health. Everybody has their own journey. Some people, they might be fortunate enough that they can recognize those things straight away, and they might be feeling themselves again within half an hour. For others it's a bit more difficult, and there's absolutely no shame in that. And that some people take a little bit longer with those sorts of things. And I think, as you say, Ben, it's the first thing is recognizing it, and that there is no shame in recognizing it. It's a cliche, I suppose, but it really is okay to not be okay. And everybody has their own relationship with mental health and their own different ways, and everybody works on different timescales and stuff like that. And Tom, we've spoken about different ways. You mentioned about sort of, you've got a very close sort of support network with your family and stuff like that, and exercise, and sort of who would you sort of go to and sort of talk to if you did have those problems or concerns?
Yeah, so it'd be my mum and dad or my girlfriend, I think. They're my sister, so they're probably the closest people to me. But I feel very comfortable talking to them about whatever it is. But obviously, I understand that's not the same for everyone. But that's where I'm lucky and fortunate. And I think another thing I've done in the past was if you write down a few things that you appreciate in your life, and they can be tiny things. I think that really helps you just sort of be present in that moment and understand that not everything's bad. I woke up this morning. I can see with my two eyes. I can walk. So it can be little things, and as simple as or as silly as they may sound, it's true. The other thing would be a cold shower. I do that most mornings, and I tend to feel that makes me feel really better in the day, like a lot better in the day.
Is that a footballer thing? I've had a lot of footballers like cold showers.
Well, not. Do you know what I've seen a bit about Wim Hof and all that, but I'm not he's a bit crazy, but I'm not to that extent. But it's just a little something that if I'm feeling down, because in a weird way, because you have that pain of getting in the shower and it's freezing. Once you get out, life just feels easier. You weren't in that freezing cold shower a minute ago. So yeah, it's little things, but that might not work for everyone. And like you said, everyone's different and everyone copes in different ways, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that's the key message here, is that it is okay to not be okay, and sort of anything that you're feeling, sort of lots of other people will no doubt have sort of had similar feelings in the past, and we'll know how to recognize it and deal with it. And sort of the best thing is always to sort of share those issues or concerns, whether that is with family members or friends, or if you're not comfortable with doing that, there are some fantastic sort of organizations out there, places like Mind and Samaritans. We'll drop a link to a few in the description of this podcast. But just getting that weight sort of off your shoulder, just having someone who's there for an ear to listen to almost. And yeah, lots of different things that are going to be unique to some people. We are three men talking about mental health, but none of us are counsellors. Ben's a teacher, I work in marketing, and Tom's a footballer. So we're certainly not counsellors, but everybody has all their different ways and sort of different unique ways, and that there will be something out there hopefully for somebody that can help them stop feeling sort of as low as they do for 5-10 minutes. And as Tom said, sometimes it's just appreciating the small things, that you're waking up in the morning, making your bed is actually massive for me. Literally just making that bed tidy, and you've ticked that one thing off for the day. You've accomplished something, no matter how small it is. Literally just walking around the block, you've done something just to sort of get your brain going and stuff like that. But yeah, and that just about rounds up, chaps, what's been a really, really fantastic discussion, really. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to it at home. Tom, thank you very much for coming on, sort of talking so openly about your mental health.
No worries. Thank you, guys.
And Ben too, as I say, it's certainly been just sort of great to chat, really, and just almost share ideas. I don't know whether I'll be trying out a cold shower tomorrow morning, but
honestly, I'm telling you, give it a bash, mate. Honestly,
I will feed back and let you know how it goes. But yeah, but Ben, it's just been great. Just sort of just really valuable. Just sort of, as we've said, just sometimes just to sit down and chat for 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think the final thing I'd say is you're not. People that feel the way, they're not going to be the first to go through it, they're not going to be the last to go through it, and there's always an option to make yourself feel better. And whether it's a cold shower, I don't know, we'll see what happens. But yeah, there's always something that you can do to help yourself. So yeah, thanks for having me on as usual, Olly. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Yeah, if anyone does try a cold shower, I think I will try one purely because Tom McIntyre has recommended it. If anyone does try a cold shower, let us know on Twitter how it goes. But yeah, we hope you have enjoyed today's show, and we'll see you very soon. Come on, you Rs.
Be loud and be proud and back the boys and make some noise. Come on, you Rs.
Shout out to this week's podcast sponsor, ZCZ Films. showing that age is no barrier to being a hula hoop.